Hello and welcome to my latest Hiya Godzilla figure review. Today we're feeding some nuclear energy to our Godzilla friend, checking out the Hiya Toys' latest GXK figure, the Energized Godzilla figure. This figure was ordered from Kowskis.com, and I'm leaving a link in the info section if you wish to purchase this figure now, rather than wait for other stores to get it in stock. Let's waste no more time and jump in. Alright, so we're ready to get into it, the latest addition to my collection, the Energized Godzilla from GXK. This right here was one of those variations that I didn't think nothing of as far as like, am I gonna get it or not? Because honestly, it was an instant buy for me. I'll admittedly say that I was anticipating that we would get the Godzilla 2014 first before this, but you know what, looking back, it kind of makes sense to go ahead and release this because, I mean, we already got the pre-evolved version a few months ago, so let's go ahead and get the energized version before we eventually get the evolved Godzilla, which is supposed to come out at the end of the year, possibly the beginning of next year. We'll see if it comes out on time. But let's go ahead and talk about the box art of this. The box is what we expect to see from Hiya Toys. Hiya seems to have a thing for clouds and lightning. I mean, that's pretty well what I've come to notice that has kind of been the usual trend from them. However, the difference here, though, is this is kind of like an attempt to recreate that scene from Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, where Godzilla is freshly charged. Off to the upper right, we have the logo of Godzilla x Kong, and of course we got the Hiya logo at the bottom right. On both the left and the right sides is exactly the same, with more clouds from the background, and the logo of Godzilla x Kong, including also the Hiya logo, of course. And then on the top, once again, same. The bottom of the box, and then the very back of it includes various promotional shots of the Energized Godzilla, which were released online, and basic information that you would come to expect from the back of the Hiya action figures. That's all there is really to say about it, honestly. It's a pretty simple box, and honestly, if you're new to Hiya, you really don't expect much more than this. It's clean looking, it's simple, it gets the point across. It's probably one of them that I'm not going to criticize too much. I mean, I've been a little critical in the past of Hiya Toys and their packaging, but this still looks presentable on the shelf. So here we are with our Energized Godzilla. So there's something I want to go ahead and talk about before I go any further to make perfectly clear. So underneath all the brand new highlights that we have for this Godzilla, essentially it is just a dark gray, the charcoal colored Godzilla that we see from the usual Hiya action figures. And you can tell when you look at certain scales, and of course when you look at the elbows where you can see where the articulation is, it's just the simple color that we have. However though, we have all these highlights, the paint job in between the creases, the scales, and when you look at the front, my god, this really just makes this mold just pop so well. If I haven't sang this mold's praise enough, I will say that when they go ahead and release new variations like this, you just get to see how intense the detail is on this action figure, just from the tip of the tail all the way to the face. The face is pretty good. I'll really say the eyeballs kind of get lost in there when you see it. I mean, it's not as apparent as, say, like what the packaging portrays the figure as. The inside of the mouth, you have kind of like that Winter Fresh bubblegum type coloration, that light blue going on. And that's pretty well what this figure does. It makes use of a lot of light blues and, of course, whites just on top of that charcoal color. So it's a nice variation, pretty clean, honestly. There's a few areas that are a little spotty, especially when you look at the tip of the spines, which I do see a few errors there. However, though, it's nothing I'm incredibly critical of, but I'm going to go ahead and point this out, though. So we got to talk about one of the biggest selling points for this action figure for me, and that was basically the fact that this uses a translucent mold. So I went ahead and got my Ulanzi cube out. At the risk of blinding myself, I'm going to go ahead and show you about how much you can go ahead and see when you have any light up to this right here. So of course those spines, and of course you can see a little bit right here in the back of the body, right here on the sides, I guess. And not really as much around here, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn the brightness up, kind of play with it. If you have any lights like this, and you have them staged correctly to the point where you can hide them or easily Photoshop them out, you can get some really cool shots out of this without having to go into Photoshop to kind of brighten things up or kind of tamper around or manipulate it. So I think this is neat right here. Actually, this is what I did right here when I was shot the cover photo and the photo that you see on Instagram if you follow me on there. So it does have enough of the translucentness, and I like the fact, honestly, I like the fact that we can see some through. Let's see if we can get any more of the body shown. Just a little bit, not a whole lot. It's too thick for it to go through, but it's there though. That's all I got to say about that. And that concludes the mold and the sculpt for this bad boy. So highlighting the articulation for this action figure. If you've seen any reviews for this Godzilla, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It's the exact same articulation that we expect from any Hiya Godzilla with this exact same mold. But I'll go over it. For anybody that has never bought any of these Godzillas, or maybe this is your first time you're getting one of these ones, so you have an idea of how it's going to work. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different cuts right up here for the head right here. Not a lot of range, honestly. Any of the Hiya action figures, I do want to say, it's a disclaimer for anybody that's new. They don't have a lot of extreme articulation. But one thing I do want to go ahead and say, now outside the obvious, we can go ahead and open up this jaw right here. And I think I discovered this on my pre-evolved one, I think it was. I didn't even know it was there. I mentioned in the last video. But you can move this tongue around, and that's actually really cool. So do be a little mindful of it. So for the arms, we have, of course, the elbows. There is kind of some restriction here. I mean, there's nothing that's too extreme. And then for that, it's nothing too crazy for the elbows. And then for that, for the hands, let's just go ahead and spin around. We'll talk more about these hands in a moment, because there is one surprise for this action figure that most Hiya figures just never have, especially in the Godzilla line. For the abs, there is something there. However, though, you're not getting much out of it. That's one thing about this. I mean, I like the fact it's there, but yeah, nothing much is happening. And then for that, for the legs, you can go ahead and rotate these all the way around. So that gets probably the most range. And then for that, we have double jointed knees. Of course, the feet just kind of like rock on around. So I'd say, honestly, it's crazy to say this, but the legs get some of the most articulation. Then for that, we go down to this tail. For Hiya figures, you don't need to plug them in for, say, like the NECA figures where you got to fight them. Yeah, it's already on there and assembled once you go ahead and take it out of the packaging. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. It gets a little stiff down here. We're not seeing any movement right there. And then 7, 8, and then after that, 9. So there's 9 points of articulation right there. It is all segmented, not quite like the NECA one with the bendy wire. Hiya has not made use of a lot of bendy wire for a lot of their action figures. I'm curious to see if that will change for future molds of action figures. I personally like this, honestly. I think it holds up better, honestly, and it works. So it's nothing I'm arguing too much about. But I'd say it's probably, like if I were to rate the articulation, 7 out of 10. It's nothing too wild, nothing too extreme. But I mean, I'm not a person anybody that's too big on a lot of like crazy articulation. I mean, I just set it up on the pose, put it on the shelf, and that's how it's probably going to be for the rest of the years until I take him off the shelf. So it's time to talk about something with this action figure that really intrigues me. So for once, finally, we have accessories, because we have 2 different hands that we can go ahead and install, both the left and the right. This is not a norm for any Hiya Godzilla figure, so if you're a new collector, you're walking into something that's brand new for the Godzillas, at least to my knowledge. And I want to see this become more the norm down the line, even if we got to pay a little bit extra. Maybe we get a stand, but it's always just the action figure. So this right here is the first for any Godzilla figure that I've bought where you get alternate hands. However, I'll admittedly say it's kind of off to a rocky start. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull off the hands that are already pre-installed in the action figure. And as you can tell right here, the ball peg has already been popped out of this one, because when I took his hand off, it came off entirely right there. So, I mean, I could go, it's not broken or anything like that. I just need to go ahead and get it in there and hope that it just holds, and then after that, get that off. And that way I can go ahead and install the new hand. And so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and cut away. I'm going to go ahead and get this worked, and then after that, pop in the new hand so you guys have an idea of how it looks. I think I like the open hands, or maybe I'll do a combination of both of them. So, let's see how this works out for me. And this is what I was able to come up with. Godzilla likes to keep this handy for close encounters, especially when 3-headed monsters show on up. All jokes aside, however, I really didn't know what to put in his hand. I was looking for a Master Sword to have around here somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But essentially, though, this is a good start, though, honestly. My issue is, however, though, this one hand right here continuously wants to pull the peg out. So that is one problem. I can work with it more, but I can tell it's kind of a quality issue I'm not used to, because NECA seems to have their pegs a lot more secured when you go ahead and actually pull the hand on out. So what I'm thinking I'm probably going to do is just heat it up even more and then kind of clamp down right here, and then after that just pull and hope that it doesn't take the peg with it. That said, though, I'm hoping this becomes more of a norm, and hopefully we get more accessories involved with these packs of Godzilla figures, maybe on the level of what NECA does, to get a little creativity, honestly, because yes, the hands do get kind of overlooked, and we probably just put it in one static position, most of us, but I'd like to see some variation. So, a comparison and a final verdict on the Energized Godzilla. If you're one of those people that's not into these more vibrant variations of action figures, then you probably will not want this. Most people will go ahead and just go after the more sought-after variations, which are just a regular Godzilla. For me, though, personally, the biggest draw for this action figure, I love the fact they went ahead and not used just a normal plastic and painted over it, but it's the translucent plastic. And while your lights will not always pick up on it, the fact that it's there actually means a lot for me as a collector. It's the small detail that matters, and the fact this figure has extra hands involved also too. So there is a step forward for this one, even if it's not that big of a release in the grand scheme of Godzilla action figures for Hiya. You'll be looking to spend at least $60 to $80 at most. I got mine, I think, for about like $65 on Kowskis.com. I do recommend, I've had good success through them. They ship pretty fast, and I haven't had any damaged products yet. Hopefully that is a never. Nobody's perfect. Hoping UPS does not accidentally damage it on the way. So I've seen a few of the unfortunate cases, but I'm going to go ahead. If I see any, I'll report them to kind of let you know what my experience is with Kowskis. So far, though, 4 action figures purchased from there, and I'm loving what I can get through them, and I do recommend their website. That said, though, back to the action figure, the point in case, this is one that's up to you as a collector. I mean, if you're one of those people that does not like these variations and just want a simple Godzilla, then you'll go ahead and look elsewhere and get, say, like the pre-evolved one, which is still out there you can get a hold of. I'll include links for those as well. But this one, link in the bio to go ahead and order. Go ahead and let me know, what do you think of this action figure? Pass, or are you going to grab it? You guys have a great day. Check out some other content, and thanks for your time. Peace.